what we're going to start, and this is the first one of a series of introduction to CVT. This is actually the introduction. We'll have several more. Again, I could go on forever about this. Anybody that knows me knows I'm long-winded, so we're going to break this into portions. What is a CVT? A CVT is a continuously variable transmission. What does that mean? It means it's a snowmobile. Give it gas, it goes faster. Let off the gas, goes slower. In the CVT, it's all about ratio change. It really does not shift. Now, we'll get into a little bit later about people that say they shift because they have a sport mode, for the guys that want to feel it. I'll kind of go over it when I show you kind of how a pulley works. Again, let's get right to the meat of it. This is a CVT. It's a transmission. When you first look at it, it's no different than looking at an AW5550, an AF21, 4F2070. It's parts in a case. With CVT, it can have a torque converter, or one other little wrinkle in these, and you'll see this in others, where you hear of a hybrid or a PHT, partial hybrid. Instead of a torque converter, what it has is a giant electric motor that sits in this housing. There'll be big wires going to it. It'll have the magnet, the center of it, and what it has is a real hard magnet, and they're fun at first until everything you got sticks to it, and then you won't have fun no more. Then it has a clutch, just a regular old typical clutch pack hub, such, and it connects to that. So when you pull up to a stop sign, it stops. You step on the gas, and similar to a golf cart, this motor fires up, engages the clutch, turns it, and then operates as a torque converter. Again, it's a whole nother animal, but if you see it, the difference generally between torque converter, start-stop motor. Push that to the side. One of the problems we're seeing most is, what do you have? The names on these are crazy. I've done a couple cheat sheets. I'll show them briefly. We'll have them on the video here. But when you're looking at a CVT, they put a ton of identifying marks on it. Okay, so one of the parts of IDing these things, because again, they all kind of look the same, run together. It's no different than any other automatic. One good thing that CVTs have is they all come with this nice little tag on here, but of course we all know what happens to that. Flies off. This 3VX0C is the code for this one. It can cross over into exactly what unit this is. Luckily, the little part of the tag will have it, but the best thing is, every one of these I've seen it right here embossed, 3VXOC, and then the serial number of the unit. Them, when you're ordering, when you're trying to decipher what it is, actually if you took this 3VXOC and Googled it, it would come up with what year, make, and model this went in, and it would actually tell you what type of tranny it is. It's really kind of simple. Stuff's coming together a lot better for these. And also on this one, if it happened to have the neutral switch or the MLPS on there, on top of that is also one of these tags that would have the same number to it. So again, guys, you start getting this, let's take what it is, let's decipher it across a couple charts, and we'll get it all figured out. Now you know what they're working on. That's half the battle right there, is just knowing what you got. CVT is nothing more than two pulleys, variators, because that's what they do, they variate, but they're two pulleys, and they'll run a belt. If you can look at the belt, it's angled right here. It's smooth. It runs at a pitch on both sides. That squeezes in between these two things, and these go up and down. So here's kind of how they operate. If you think of a little wheel and a big wheel, This wheel is going to spin faster, it's smaller than this one. So as you're working on a CVT, basically what you have is two wheels, and they're going to go like this. Faster, slower. This being the drive one. This turn fast, this will go slower. As you're going down the road, at one point they're going to be even. Then it's going to go like this. And that's all a CVT does. It continuously variates on your speed. Again, when you're going down the road, and again, I'm jerking, it don't quite work like this, but you're going to get the great idea. As this belt sits in here, it'll sit way up on this one towards the outside. This one will be higher, so the belt will sit all the way in. And as you're going down the road, this is what you get. Faster. The further it goes in, the faster this is going to turn. When it comes out, the belt pushes out, the slower it's going to turn. So as you're going down the road, this is just continuously doing this. This is just one half of an assembly, and I just wanted to show you the angle. And that angle matches the angle here. So it sets very similar to that. And again, all it does, starts in here. As it's driving down the road, it works its way up. As it slows down, it comes down faster and slower. Again, metal on metal. Whatever you do, don't put regular fluid in here. CVT fluid is special, designed for this kind of metal-to-metal contact and the pressures it takes to not allow this belt to slip. All right, this is Dave, and I get a break today. I'm not in the cage. I'm actually at a local transmission shop. We have our CVT that we did a first little clip on how to ID what a CVT is. And now, I'm very fortunate. I may not even have to get dirty, because I got some friends here that are going to peel this unit. And again, basically what we're going to do is just separate it, check out the parts in it, talk about it a little bit as we go. So stay tuned, have fun. Peel it out. Now what we just lifted off here is basically the main CVT. It's got the belt and pulleys. And again, in my first video, as I showed, you could see this one's real wide, real narrow. As you go down the road, this one will start closing, this one will start opening, and it's just a continuous variation of the pulleys going up and down, which gives you your speeds. Again, this is the main chunk of it. When you look, this is a really cherry unit. Actually, it looks kind of brand new. When these pulleys here, when you look at the face of them, if they got scar marks, slip marks, if the belt looks like it got hot, you can buy all the pieces of components, but sometimes it's better just already bought it rebuilt. So we'll keep tearing it down. We'll get back to this. We want to separate the rest of it. Just a bell housing, a shroud, feed pipe, couple bearings, just like case half on a Honda. Okay, this is the other side of it, opposite variators. Chain drive pump that goes to the remote pump, a diff, transfer gear. Again, these units, compared to a step transmission or a 6-speed, 8-speed, 9-speed, 10 speeds, there's not much to these. They're pretty simple. If you think about a snowmobile, that's what we're working on. We now have bushing kits for these also. There's a stator bushing, little input, kind of a simple thing. ring gear splines into the clutch drum. Again, you gotta have a couple clutches. One to apply for forward, one to apply for reverse, because you gotta kick it backwards. And some of them actually now have another clutch set in to make it like a 2-speed. So it has a high and low range. Again, one of the drawbacks to these of people buying them is they don't shift. Everybody's used to a transmission shifting. You get one of these, it just goes faster and slower, and RPMs stay somewhat consistent. So what they're trying to do to make it more appealing to people is actually put a shift, a stumble, a skip in it to make it more like a step transmission, more what people are used to having. Again, just simple clutch packs, no big deal. Clutch drum, gonna have bonded piston and retainer in there. Again, the ring gear sits in, splines to this. When you're tearing these down, you gotta kind of watch. This is a sensor wheel, or a reluctor if you want to call it, for one of the speed sensors. And if you drop it and ding it, that can get you all kinds of codes and stuff. So when you take it, this is one of the pieces you want to be real nice with. Again, this is a Planet. Kind of skimpy, but it gets the job done. Ring gear and a hub for the clutch drum. The second set of clutches in there, and again, it don't take much. It only has to hold a little bit. There's only a couple frictions in this one. It's not a 6, 7, 10 stack up. It's just a couple simple frictions. Spring set, and that's it. This is the pump out of it. This is all it is. To make the extreme pressures, and by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but on a CVT, if you're gonna hook a gauge on it to check pressures, don't use a typical gauge. Use 200 to 300 pounder, because these things will run 170 to 225 PSI. So if you put a 30 or an 80 gauge on it, needless to say, that dial's going to spin, it's going to blow the top off, and you're going to have a hose blowing oil all over your customer's car. So again, use the proper tools when you're doing it, but this is the little dude that creates all the pressure. Again, there's one more spring set inside there, but this is a gutted transmission now. And if you've seen, or you look in catalogs at step transmissions with all the clutch drums, sprags, all that, this is relatively a simple unit to do. There's just not much to it. Again, the problem used to be parts. We're getting that covered really well. We're saturating it. We're getting a lot of info, and stuff's becoming more readily available. So again, it's a simple type unit. All right, we're gonna peel down them at a local shop, Atlas Transmission, and Mr. Jeff here does CVTs in his sleep now. Got them laying all over the floor, valve bodies everywhere, pulley sets. Basically, all I want to do is, this is the main meat of a CVT. And watch how easy it comes apart. And Jeff's going to show us something a little special. He's got a way to literally take them apart without a puller. So we'll stay tuned, watch as we go along.
Yeah, I do all this. You've got to put some zip ties in there.
Again, the zip ties to keep the chain, the little edges from falling off and turn it into 1,000 pieces versus one piece.
You also have to take note of the direction the pulley tube turns. There's an arrow on there. The direction of it. There.
And what Jeff's pointing out, these belts are directional. They're meant to go one way, so make note of it. Again, sometimes it's never a bad idea. You got a cell phone, click a picture of what it is before you take it apart and you know, or take a note and just to know which way it goes, because it only goes one way.
The other thing is when you put the zip ties on, the way you put them on, if you put it on this way, it's going in the right direction. If you turn it around and these are down, it's going in the wrong direction.
Great tip.
A little common sense.
Points up, that's how you go back together with it.
Which puller you want to use? My homemade one or the good?
Whichever one you want to use. Again, there's a couple different ones. You have the two-jaw, the TJ1 or other types like that. You also have the ones that clamp around the outside that Transgo has, Adaptacase has. These are like copied somewhat after the OE tools. And again, you're going to find out what works for you the best. And again, whatever lays around. Basically, all he did was to take tension off to loosen the pulleys so you can get the belt off of it a little easier to work with. When you unbolt it from the back side, the pulleys will come out a little easier when he takes the bolts out to hold them in, because there's no tension trying to pull the bearings together in the case. Again, that's all it is, getting them out of the case. There's your belt. It comes off. Now, the guys that aren't doing these, you're missing some real gravy. That's what you're doing. One of the reasons people weren't doing them, you couldn't get parts. That's getting handled really good. Berkeley Standard, Transtar, we're getting more and more every day. Just recently, Nissan is starting to release some pieces parts. The thing is, they don't know what to sell yet and how to price it and that, so we've been trying to work with Nissan directly also. So again, that was the hardest part, is parts. This is all it is, guys. No clutches to set up, not 19 planetary sets and clutches and bands and drums and all. There's really nothing to these. Now, this is one part I'm really kind of excited to see Jeff's style. You take the nut off, you press this off, put the nut back, and the way I've done it is took the puller like this, hook on here, and pull it till it pops. And again, it's no big deal. That spring is not a car spring. It's not quite as heavy as a overdrive Planet spring. It's a little lighter than that. It's still a meaty spring. But you put the bolt on, it keeps it from flying all over and killing any better. Now, Jeff's going to show me another way. It might be a little faster, so stay tuned to learn something new here today. Now, one thing about all these, they're all pressed together. Anybody that does Hondas, if you're not doing CVTs, you really went from one extreme to the other, super hard, more or less super easy. And again, if you do Hondas, you're used to these gears pressed in and fighting you to come apart a little bit. Again, no special tools per se. Now, for pressure testing, you're going to want a different kind of pressure gauge. These things run extremely high pressure, so if you use a 0 to 100 or a 0 to 300, you're going to eat your gauge. You need a 1,000-pound gauge is where I would go with it. Now he's just going to go apart instead of hooking on things. Just use his press, and actually, if you turn around and see it. Kind of all there is to it. Again, anytime. Now, some of these are spring-loaded and some are not. I haven't found rhyme and reason to it yet. Again, I haven't done near as many as somebody who might do them all to find out which ones will. just as a precaution. Always put that nut back on so when it comes apart, it stays contained. That's all. One thing about these two, if you're taking one down and you're going to rebuild it, if you buy a used cover, something that has been remanned, whatever you do, do not short stick taking them pulleys apart. If it's got a bad seal inside, the dirt loves to hide, the dirt and grime loves to hide in there. And if you don't, it will come back to haunt you. If it ain't today, it's tomorrow, but you're gonna get it. Always, always, always take the pulleys apart. One of my favorite tools, the blue tip wrench, works for everything. So if you can't get it apart, just torch it apart. Now, this will be the first time I've seen this. Makes great sense. Looking forward to it. So you keep the tip away a little bit so it don't go. Now you're not gonna cut this off. What you're just doing is heating it. You're going to always get that. It's that one. You know, my tooth always hurts until I go to the dentist all of a sudden. And there it was, that little pop.
Yep. That's usually right away.
And that's where you don't want to have your fingers in there or anything. And again, heating the collar, letting it expand, letting it come up like that's one way, using the puller as another. Here, now you let it cool down before you grab a nut with your hand. Again, this nut here with the microphone kind of forgets that stuff, and I would go touch it, and then I'd have to go to work with little Band-Aids, and then they make fun of me, so we don't do that. Now when he goes to slide it apart, the older styles have little check balls. Again, another thing you absolutely want to take them apart. The check balls had major problems with deteriorating. The newer ones have little rollers similar to a roller clutch, and it gives more support. Actually, people are taking the balls out and putting the rollers in. Time will tell if it's a better fix or not. Again, there's your check balls in there. If you don't take these apart and they're a little bit wore, but it looks clean, they will fail on you in a short time, and it's your nickel. So take it apart. That's basically all there is. Again,
Look at the rollers where the balls ride. These get chewed up in here, and what happens is the balls start disintegrating, and when the balls disintegrate, the metal gets caught up in the ring, the Teflon ring on here, and then as it moves up and down in the bore, it scores up in here. You have to check for wear there, you have to check for wear there, you have to check the balls, make sure they're nice and shiny and no pitting on them.
now most of the kits come with new balls now, and that's a good thing. And by the way, don't use just a regular check ball. These are hardened check balls. Don't use accumulator pins and saw them down and try to put in there, because they're not hard enough. This is hardened bearing steel. So it's a Rockwell of H, like a C scale, 58 to 62. Anything less than 58, just absolutely gonna fail on you. Also, been hearing these rings come in two sizes, two thicknesses now. So make sure you have the right ring for the right application. Most kits come with both of them. If you get a kit with only one, Just make sure it's the right one.
See, two different styles on the butt right too. You got the 3D version cut. It's kind of hard to see. And then
Right.
the regular square cut. These seal better.
So again, with any ceiling ring, the way they go together, you can have an angle cut, a square cut, you can have a lap cut. There's so many different ones, and again, they're getting more elaborate. So again, these aren't $1 anymore; they're a little bit more. But again, just kind of make sure it's all good. But it's highly recommended to go in. You got them to change them. You can actually feel some roughness on this a little bit, and this was a pretty clean unit. Yeah, we're gonna basically how a CVT works. Open and close, and you think about it, big wheel, little wheel, and they just keep going like this down the road, faster, slower, constantly variable, and he's gonna show basically how the movement of it is.
Y'all hear any air leaking around here?
So he's air tested,
You'll get a little.
holding solid air pressure, no leaks around here, so you can air test these a little bit. And again, you got a little aerosol can's not going to work, but some air,
Put your hand in it.
get them done. Yeah, don't. He's setting me up. He knows I do this idiot stuff. Here, hold my beer, watch this. I've done this before. I'm not doing it again, but if you're doing it, always keep your fingers away, whether you're popping them apart, air checking them. So if you're holding it like this, when you hit air, you're going to feel it real quick. So again, a little safety on it. Again, this is the somewhat easier one. Just take apart a good arbor press, an H press, and in Jeff's case, a torch for the one, which is really cool. I haven't seen that before. I'm really glad I made this stop.
Pops a lot easier.
That was impressive though. Okay, again, unlike the other one with the spring, no spring on this one.
Some of these versions have a spring in them.
In both, some will have in both.
And the JFO 10, they'll have it in there, and then some of the smaller units have a spring in both of them.
Okay.
So this particular unit didn't have a spring in this. Not a lot of the JFO 11s. That's what this particular setup is for the JFO 10s.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll come across with a light spring. It's not nearly as heavy as that, but they do have light ones, so you'll know which has got a spring and which doesn't.
Okay.
Because you won't be able
Well,
to
so
go
yeah,
up.
exactly. As the way he had this and was able to move it, you knew it didn't have a spring in it. And again, as Jeff was saying, the spring that'll be in that one won't be as stout as that one. Again, when you take it apart, same drill with the other one. You got the pockets, you got your check balls. You want to look for any scarring on your pulleys. Again, a slight amount. And again, that's going to be beauty in the eye of the beholders, but a very slight amount with a new belt should go down the road. I've known guys have whiz wheeled these. They've actually taken, and again, you better take somebody who knows how to run a machine, because the angle has to be that angle. And they're taking a slight cut. If you went over to 3 to 5 thousandths, I don't know if it's very good anymore, because you could actually cut through the hardness into, and again, steel's hard, but there's different hardness levels. If you get below that hardness level, it ain't going to take the punishment of the belt and the pressure it has. Again, fellas, this is the mystery of a CVT. It is not that hard if you're not doing them. At least send them over here, let Jeff do them, because he loves them. He's doing them all day long, making money down the road. So again, thanks for your time, and really not that hard. I really appreciate it.
A couple of things if you want.
Oh, okay.
On these, I got a 3/4 inch belt sander. The ones that get galled up, typically the pulley doesn't get damaged. What I'm finding, not all the time, but typically, the belt is material that gets stuck to this gets galled into this. So I take a belt sander, a 1-inch belt sander or a 3/4 inch belt sander, and I run it on a lathe and just let it cut the material off it.
Okay.
I'm not really cutting into this pulley. And then when I get done with it, I take my little buffing
The whiz wheel?
with the brown disc first, and it puts a cut on it, and then I use a blue disc on it, which is a real fine thing. It comes out with the finish darn close to that.
And you have pretty good luck with it.
Yeah.
Again, what he's saying is the belt is kind of sticking to the pulleys when the belt's wearing, not so much pulley, so he's putting it on a lathe, hitting it with a little belt sander. Again, not digging into it, not really moving a ton of metal, but whatever's stuck to it. And then 2 different whiz wheels to get the finish that's working for him that he likes, and he's been really successful doing it. And again, guys, as I'm saying, educations cost money. Whether you're sending a kid to school, whether you're going to a seminar, whether you're anything. The first time you do any new transmission, you're really not going to make money on your first one. You actually might lose a little bit, but it's the first one. You're going slow, you're taking your time, you're learning tips and tricks and how this goes and that goes. By the time you do your 3rd and 4th, now you're making money, you're in the ball game. And again, CVTs like any others, you get comfortable, you'll find what is acceptable wasn't. And again, we've all tripped, fell, and skinned our knees on every unit we've ever done. These are no different. They're just a little bit simpler, not as many pieces. Again, you load a bench with a Honda, it's a full bench. Load a bench with a CVT, you still got another half a bench. You can play with 2 CVTs, just don't get them mixed up. And again, it's just getting comfortable with it. But there's no mystery to this. There's no secrets. It's actually pretty easy. And again, if I'm saying it's easy, trust me, it's easy. So, guys, don't chase these away from your shop. Actually, I recommend highly, acquire a core somewhere. They're out there. And tear down a core just to see for yourself. By the time you get that core down, if it ain't tore up or anything, build that core. Put it back together. Build the core. You're going to put it in something. Again, your first thing is taking one apart just to see how easy it is. Again, I don't really say easy anymore with today's trannies. You look at the 8 speeds, 9 speeds, 10 speeds coming out. Again, we're all used to steps, so we take that in stride. This is not a stepped unit, but again, compared to them and the amount of parts and stuff, don't pass this up. Do not let this go by you because somebody else is doing it. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it.